This is Akashvani. In the program Money Talk, now we bring you a discussion on unlocking India's potential in the aviation sector. The participants are Tarun Shukla, aviation expert, and Nishit Kumar, anchor.
Indian aviation sector is experiencing meteoric rise fueled by soaring demand and government's unwavering commitment to its growth through supportive policies. The industry has undergone a remarkable transformation, shedding its previous limitations and enduring into a vibrant and competitive sector. This dynamic shift has propelled India to the forefront of global aviation ecosystem, becoming the third largest domestic aviation market in the world after the USA and China. And to discuss more about the road ahead, challenges and opportunities in the sector, today we have with us Mr. Tarun Shukla, aviation expert. Mr. Shukla, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nishit.
Mr. Tarun, first of all, I would like to know that the Indian aviation industry is growing by leaps and bounds, as we can see, and it's growing by more than almost 10% annually over the past decade. How do you see this development?
Yes, aviation, as we always talk about, is directly linked to the growth of the GDP. And often it sort of grows almost double the size of the growth of the GDP of a country. So the growth has been absolutely spectacular over the last few years. It opened the floodgates for low-cost airline revolution in the country. And that revolution has continued in various forms. What is very interesting is that we saw a sort of a downtrend in growth when the pandemic hit in 2020. And after that, if you compare India with China, China's growth has not returned as strongly as India's after, this sort of a small speed bump that we hit at that point of time. So now we're already back in terms of the number of passengers who used to fly Indian skies and, of course, go abroad. And it's gone way above the 2019 number already. Mm-hmm. So that tells us the kind of demand that is there in terms of the propensity of the people to travel, airlines. It's no more seen as a sort of a sector which is only for the upper middle class. Many more people are traveling. And I think we are going to see very strong growth over the next few years. A small data point, if it helps, since the first flight official took off, we've seen an Indian aviation fleet grow to about 700 planes. And it has taken that long. But in the next 6 to 7 years, that fleet will double. So we are seeing that kind of growth curve ahead in just the 5 to 7 year period, and not to forget the next 2 decades ahead.
Right. You mentioned about the first flight. Another first happened yesterday, that is the 9th of December. The first validation flight successfully touched down at the Noida International Airport. It is indeed a significant milestone in its journey towards operational readiness. The momentous occasion was, of course, graced by the Minister of Civil Aviation, Shri Ram Mohan Naidu, and MP from Gautam Budh Nagar, Dr. Mahesh Sharma, among others. Now, how do you see the Noida International Airport adding value to the sector?
It's a very big achievement, Nishit, because if you notice over the last few years, we have always had complaints, of Delhi airport getting crowded and, there are traffic jams around it during some peak months. And that has always been a challenge. The launch of Noida Airport, which we are expecting by summer, and this was the test flight which landed yesterday, which sort of was meant to understand the navigation and things like that of the airport, if everything is working fine. We will see the airport will add not just value to the NCR, which already has a major airport like Delhi, but it will also end up tapping many more customers from Western UP and, Agra and that region. Right now, all those people used to come to Delhi airport if they had to take a flight, but that will no more be the case. All those people will actually be just taking flights from Noida airport. I think an important point to highlight here is that Noida airport hasn't taken like 10 years to develop from the time it was given to Zurich airport a few years back. So there has been a constant push by the Uttar Pradesh government to see this airport through, let it be operational in the soonest possible way. And there has been a lot of support around it. So I think it's going to be a game-changing airport because not only will it take off the load of Delhi airport, but it will also encourage many more connections to come up, from Noida to, let's say, Noida to Dehradun, Noida to Delhi. And next year is going to be momentous also because we will not just see Noida airport come up, but we will also see Navi Mumbai airport come up most likely. So we will have for the first time 2 airports in 2 of the biggest cities that we have in Delhi and Bombay. And, there will be connections from Noida Airport to Bombay Airport because Bombay may be a little late. But the flights from Noida Airport to Navi Mumbai Airport will become a reality next year. So that's a huge achievement if you look at it just a few years back when we only had one airport from Delhi and one from Bombay to fly to.
Right, Mr. Tarun. Indeed, very heartening it is. But despite the robust growth, as we have seen in potential, the industry faces actually several challenges that have led to the failure or bankruptcy of many airline companies in India in the past. Now, what has been the problem area here?
I think, Nishit, the problem for some of the airlines in the past has been that the market was very fractured. Airlines have come in and they have started operations. Sometimes they were only launched without a proper business planning. So some of the airlines did not come up with a lot of planning and not enough vision, have fallen by the wayside. But airlines which have been able to demonstrate long-term vision, a long-term strategy to tap the growth in the Indian market, they have survived.
So while we do understand that, these are, of course, some of the Achilles heels that we need to kind of overcome. Another area is the high operational cost, which has been really of some concern, especially if we look at the not so profitable sectors being served by the airlines. Now, what could the government do? Of course, we know about the Udan scheme and all. What can the government actually do to look into this and address the concern?
Government has already done a lot over the last few years in terms of reducing taxation on jet fuel. A lot of state governments have been really prompt in trying to, woo airlines to have more services from their state capitals and other cities. So a lot has already happened. I think a lot will happen in terms of the costs for the airline. Almost 40 to 50% of the cost of an airline in India is jet fuel. And the airlines have been continuously pushing to reduce the taxation on that. So if there's some sort of a reform further in terms of reduction in jet fuel taxation, that will be the biggest benefit that can come to the airline. And the Udan scheme, obviously, we all know is a subsidy-led scheme, which is helping airlines do many flights on sort of unprofitable sectors.
Absolutely. One very critical area is the shortage, actually, of qualified pilots. It's another concern which has been plaguing the industry. Now, what needs to be done? How do you see this?
Yes. So what has happened over the past few years is that, like we spoke, there have been booms and busts. So what has happened is there has been a sudden jump in the number of pilots who are seeking jobs. And, that pool has suddenly found itself without jobs for a long period of time, right? So there's been like up and down. And so I think now with the industry coming into a sort of a stable two-player system, which some people criticize because a duopoly is never good for a sector. And the minister himself has said that India needs more airlines. Right. But a stable sector also leads to profitability and, clear path in terms of expansion and so on and so forth. So I think while there is a shortage of pilots, I think what is clear is that if the airlines don't go bust any further in the coming years, the pilot talent pool will gradually find jobs in these two airlines and perhaps some more airlines that hopefully should come up. So that balance we will see over the coming few years and not the sort of inorderly growth that we saw in the last sort of 15, 20 years.
Right. Talking of infrastructure, the underdevelopment of it has been another area where the government needs to focus more on. Now, although the government has taken significant steps in the field, in the area, do you feel the government needs to do more on that?
Infrastructure will obviously be a key concern for the next few years because if we are going to double our fleet size from 700-800 planes to almost like 1,500 planes or so, there'll be a huge requirement of parking bays and things like that. So airport infrastructure will need continuous improvement and addition. The coming up of Noida and Navi Mumbai airport will really help because these are the two biggest cities in terms of traffic. And Airports Authority of India is already making a lot of investments in smaller airports, smaller airfields. And the sense I get from talking to airlines is that they feel that a lot of new traffic growth will come from these tier 2, tier 3 towns. It does not really have to be Udan routes specifically, but several other routes. So those interconnections and tier 2, tier 3 traffic that will get catered to by the likes of Airports Authority of India, which again is a government organization and is putting a lot of money into developing those airports. Air navigation and the air traffic control, that reform has been pending for a long time. And the DGCA, which is the aviation regulator, that reform has also been pending for a long time. The government has sort of toyed with the ideas of reforming them. And it hasn't really seen the kind of reform that the government at some point of time wanted to do. But perhaps reform of these two regulator, as in DGCA and the Airports Authority of India, the airport operator, the main player for the larger Indian universe, those will be sort of key focus area for the government going forward.
Right, Mr. Tarun. Another area which, of course, would be of much interest to our listeners is the pricing issue. Now, we have seen the pricing, of course, is dynamic in this sector. How regulated is the price thing in this sector, Mr. Tarun?
Nishit, as you are aware, the pricing is a deregulated subject as far as airfares are concerned, and there has been a lot of pressure on the government, especially during the summer season and Diwali season. Whenever airfares shoot up, there's a constant pressure on the minister and other government officials, and the opposition leaders will pile up saying that the fares have really shot up and something should be done. The only challenge is that if the government intervenes, then also it becomes like a control issue, and the government has avoided getting into airfare regulation. So what we have seen is the government sort of gently nudges airlines that, please be a little more reasonable, to quote the word of ministers, in, having the airfares up on your website. And I don't think so there will be further intervention. I think it will be a question of, right now we are seeing very high airfares because it is the peak December quarter. And as you are aware that the Boeing factory was shut down because of industrial action there. And that has led to a lot of airplanes not coming into India. So there is demand, but there has not been enough supply of airplanes, and which is leading to higher airfares. Over the next 6 months, 1 year, as more planes come into the system, again, there will be some sort of a balance, and hopefully airfares, while not going back to the era of pre-COVID era when there were many more airlines and the pricing was much more sort of benign. The industry analysts, they say that airfares could mellow down a little bit over the next sort of 6 months to 1 year,
Right.
because more planes will be in the system.
Right. Lastly, Mr. Tarun, what are the opportunities or potential which can be actually tapped, the untapped area I'm talking about in the sector in future?
I think, Nishit, if you notice in the last few years, the players that were there in the market, they were not very deep-pocketed. What we are seeing now is they are establishing a major flying school in the country. They have established a training academy in the country. So these were the areas which were opportunities to tap, which were not there earlier, in terms of the airlines were not willing to make this kind of heavy investment. So once there are more flying schools where pilots don't have to go abroad to do their flying, the flying gets completed. Some of the issues that they keep pointing out is that the flying takes a very long time here. The infrastructure is not, as good,
Right.
and so on and so forth. So a lot of that foreign exchange that is going away, it'll sort of will be withheld within India, and, there will be a huge growth potential for the flying schools specifically. And
Right.
we are also seeing some MROs come up and maintenance institutions come up. So that's a skilling of people who are keen to come into aviation will become a very big story over the next few years.
Right.
And I think that'll be a opportunity as well.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Shukla, for having joined in and shared your valuable inputs for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You were listening to a discussion on unlocking India's potential in the aviation sector. The participants were Tarun Shukla, aviation expert, and Nishit Kumar, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.